Have you ever felt it? That creeping sense of isolation that grows the more you think. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation, brimming with an idea that feels profound and important, only to watch the light in other people's eyes dim as you speak? From Socrates, who was sentenced to death for encouraging the youth of Athens to question everything, to Galileo, who was imprisoned for daring to suggest that the earth was not the center of the universe. From Nikola Tesla, a visionary whose dreams of free energy for the world died with him in poverty, to Alan Turing, the father of modern computing, who was chemically castrated for his personal life, despite saving millions of lives. These figures weren't punished for a lack of intelligence. They were punished because their intelligence made the world around them profoundly uncomfortable. Picture yourself standing next to someone who is extraordinarily physically strong. A strange and powerful phenomenon takes place, one that psychologists have termed mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just present you with new information or a different opinion. Unintentionally, through their very presence, they act as a mirror. They reflect back to the people around them the boundaries of their own understanding, the unexamined assumptions they hold, and the questions they are too afraid to ask themselves. Who questions the very foundations of what we take for granted? It can feel like a direct assault on our sense of self. It's not just our ideas that are being challenged. It's our identity. It has the unsettling feeling that the very ground beneath our feet is not as solid as we believed. You might feel a sense of admiration, perhaps even a pang of envy, but you don't typically feel personally diminished. The more they commit to seeking the truth, the more they must diverge from the comfortable path followed by the majority. Modern neuroscience provides a stunning confirmation. Deep thinking isn't just socially intimidating. It can trigger a primal survival response, the same fight or flight mechanism that would kick in if you encountered a predator in the wild. The answer lies not in our modern civilized world, but in the brutal, tribal environment where the human brain was forged. We are biologically programmed to fit in. When a highly intelligent individual enters a social setting, they unknowingly disrupt this delicate tribal balance. The rejection of deep thinkers is highly dependent on context. The study found that when people interact with an intellectual in a one-on-one setting, their threat response is significantly lower. In private, curiosity can often win out over insecurity. However, when that same interaction happens in a group setting, the fear and rejection response spikes dramatically. Their unique perspective, their tendency to question norms, and their ability to see things differently can be perceived by the collective subconscious not as a gift, but as a threat to group cohesion. In a group, we are not just reacting to the other person. We are hyper-aware of how everyone else in the group is perceiving us. Our social standing is on public display. If someone feels intellectually outshined by a deep thinker in front of their peers, their primal instinct is not to learn, but to protect their position in the social hierarchy. This can manifest as undermining the thinker, making a joke at their expense, or subtly excluding them from the conversation, all subconscious strategies to neutralize the perceived threat to their social status. This explains a common experience for deep thinkers. They often have incredibly profound and meaningful conversations in private, but struggle to find that same connection in large, noisy social gatherings, where the currency is not depth but dominance and conformity. The stage is simply not set for their success. This triggers the brain's ancient defense systems, framing the deep thinker not as a potential ally, but as a potential enemy, a glitch in the social code. It is a biological imperative, a psychological defense mechanism, and a core part of our evolutionary heritage. It is built into our nature, reinforced by group dynamics, and as we will see, amplified to an extreme degree by the architecture of our modern world. Understanding these forces doesn't make the isolation disappear, but it reframes it. It's not a personal failing. It is the predictable outcome of a mind that sees too much in a world that prefers to keep its eyes closed. This is why so many intelligent people feel a sense of profound alienation. It's not necessarily a lack of social skills on their part. It is their very intelligence that makes them stand out in a world that biologically values fitting in. For the vast majority of human history, personal survival depended not on being the smartest or most original thinker in the group, but on being accepted by it. Our ancestors thrived in small, tightly knit tribes where social harmony and conformity were paramount. To be ostracized or rejected by the group was effectively a death sentence. An isolated individual was vulnerable to predators, starvation, and rival tribes. Brain imaging studies have shown that when individuals feel intellectually inferior or are confronted with ideas that challenge their core beliefs, their brain's amygdala, the ancient primal region responsible for processing fear and detecting threats, becomes highly active. The mirror they hold up doesn't just reflect society's limitations. It reveals the fundamental reasons why society so fiercely resists change. This isn't because the deep thinker is arrogant or condescending. Have you ever tried to introduce a complex or nuanced idea into a casual conversation, only to be met with blank stares, a quick change of subject, or an awkward, dismissive laugh? Have you ever felt the energy in a room shift uncomfortably when a discussion moves beyond surface-level chatter about sports, weather, or celebrity gossip? It is a social defense mechanism in action. This isn't a coincidence. When people encounter an idea or a person that makes them feel intellectually insecure, their minds often shift into self-preservation mode. Instead of embracing curiosity, they deploy resistance. Instead of engaging with the idea, they dismiss the person who brought it up. It is because their very presence forces a moment of introspection that most people are not prepared for. They are not isolated because they want to be alone, but because the very nature of their thinking makes them stand apart in a world that prioritizes comfort over truth. Interestingly, modern studies in social psychology confirm this bias. In most social settings, confidence is consistently valued more than competence. People are naturally drawn to individuals who project certainty and conviction, even if the ideas they espouse are simplistic, shallow, or demonstrably false. This is why charismatic but intellectually hollow leaders, motivational speakers with empty platitudes, and viral influencers with catchy but misleading sound bites often amass far more influence than deep thinkers who speak with nuance, caution, and intellectual honesty. It forces them to confront their own intellectual limitations, and the human ego, by its very nature, is a master of self-preservation. It will do almost anything to protect itself from the discomfort of feeling inferior. Their strength doesn't negate your own existence. In fact, you might see them as a potential protector or leader. Now imagine you meet someone who is incredibly wealthy. You might feel aspirational, jealous, or simply indifferent, but their financial status doesn't usually feel like a judgment on your character or your worth as a human being. Strength and wealth are external qualities. We can observe them, measure them, and even aspire to them, but they don't fundamentally challenge our core sense of self. They held up a mirror, and society did not like the reflection. Have you noticed how the more you understand the intricate, complex, and often uncomfortable truths of the world, the less people seem to want to listen? If you have, let me assure you, it is not just in your head. And even resentment in others, even if the deep thinker says nothing at all. Unlike physical prowess or material wealth, intelligence is not an external accessory. It is intimately and inextricably tied to our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, our opinions, and our personal narrative of how the world works. Our intellect is the very lens through which we perceive reality. It is, in a profound sense, who we are. Their silence can be more intimidating than their words, because it allows others to project their own insecurities onto them. The discomfort isn't caused by what the deep thinker does, but by what they represent. A different, more complex way of seeing the world that implicitly challenges the validity of one's own. This is a timeless human drama, a silent conflict that has played out for centuries. Society has always harbored a deep, unspoken fear of the deep thinker. He believed it was a source of profound isolation, a a quality that sentences its possessor to a life of seeing the world too clearly, and therefore to a life of loneliness. This fear isn't born from the belief that they are wrong, but from the terrifying possibility that they are right. It's a fear of what they see, the hidden patterns, the uncomfortable questions, and the inconvenient truths that others have built entire lives around ignoring. History is a graveyard of brilliant minds who were ridiculed, silenced, or cast aside. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most brutally honest and pessimistic philosophers, went so far as to suggest that exceptional intelligence was not a gift, but a curse. It's not about arrogance or social awkwardness. But why does this happen? Why does society, which claims to value progress and knowledge, so often resist the very minds that are capable of delivering it? The answer is not simple. The answer is woven deep into the fabric of human psychology, into the primal wiring of our brains, and into the unspoken rules of social survival. To truly grasp this, let's conduct a simple thought experiment. But when you encounter someone who is intellectually superior, something entirely different and unsettling occurs, and that is an offense many people will never forgive. The mere existence of someone who operates on a deeper intellectual level can trigger feelings of inadequacy, insecurity. So why does intelligence, more than any other form of superiority, provoke such a visceral, defensive reaction? When we meet someone who thinks on a fundamentally deeper level, someone who effortlessly deconstructs an argument we thought was solid, who sees connections we never imagined, instead of admiring this intellectual depth, many people subconsciously build a wall against it. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. This is the tragic paradox that pushes intellectuals, philosophers, and visionaries to the fringes of society. The path of the deep thinker is, therefore, one of growing disconnection. But is this just a psychological theory, or is there hard, scientific proof that the human brain is wired to fear intelligence? Let that sink in. In simple terms, your brain can interpret a deeply challenging idea from another person with the same alarm it reserves for a physical threat. Why would our brains evolve this way? Why would intellectual superiority activate the same fear circuits as a physical danger? Because of this, the human brain evolved to be an exquisitely sensitive social organ, hardwired to prioritize social acceptance above almost all else. A groundbreaking 2021 study from Stanford University revealed an even more fascinating layer to this phenomenon. The reason for this is the introduction of social status. The resistance, then, is not just a feeling or a social awkwardness. The fear of the deep thinker, as we've seen, is rooted deep in our evolutionary psychology. It's a primal biological instinct born from millennia of tribal survival, where conformity meant safety and dissent meant death. This individual, primal instinct, however, doesn't exist in a vacuum. Instead of being blindly driven by the will to live, they develop what could be called a will to truth. This is an insatiable desire to understand reality as it is, not as they wish it to be. These rituals exist to maintain social harmony and avoid friction. Schopenhauer saw the relentless human pursuit of money, power, fame, and romance as a tragic illusion, a hamster wheel powered by the irrational will. His reasoning was stark and simple. The more you understand about the world and about human nature, the less you can ignore its flaws, its absurdities, and its tragedies. It is the logical consequence of seeing a reality that others are conditioned to ignore. In reality, they often reward something else entirely: obedience. From an early age, the system is designed to identify and promote students who can memorize information, follow instructions, and regurgitate accepted answers. Leaders who offer simple, emotionally charged narratives and promise easy solutions almost always have an advantage over those who present the public with complex, nuanced realities. People crave certainty. They want to be told that the problem is simple and the solution is clear. Thought-provoking discussions that require time and mental energy are buried, while simplistic, emotionally charged, and often misleading sound bites go viral. Algorithms learn what we believe and feed us a constant stream of content that confirms our existing biases. It's a struggle against our primal fears, against our educational and corporate systems that reward conformity, and against a digital media landscape that profits from superficiality. The feeling of being an outsider is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are awake in a world that is doing everything in its power to remain asleep. In this world, we are shielded from dissenting opinions, and when we do encounter them, if society, by its very design, rejects them, what is their purpose? The answer lies not in surrender, but in strategy. History is filled with the stories of these very outcasts, the ridiculed and the rejected who, against all odds, managed to leave an indelible mark on humanity. Their stories provide not a promise of an easy life, but a roadmap for a meaningful one, offering us a path from alienation to impact. Our brains react with even greater hostility, a phenomenon known as the backfire effect, where being presented with contradictory facts can actually strengthen our original incorrect belief. The deep thinker, whose entire mode of being is to challenge assumptions and synthesize opposing viewpoints, finds themselves with no place to stand in this landscape. They are a broadcast signal that is too complex for the simple receivers that society is building. The very architecture of these platforms is hostile to depth. A well-reasoned argument that takes 10 minutes to read stands no chance against a shocking headline or a 15-second video that triggers an immediate emotional response. We are being neurologically rewired for instant gratification. Our attention spans are shrinking, and our collective tolerance for complexity is plummeting. A leader who speaks in terms of inconvenient truths, shared sacrifice, and ambiguous outcomes is asking the electorate to do the hard work of thinking, something our primal brains and institutional training have conditioned us to avoid. The student who sits quietly and scores well on standardized tests is labeled good, while the student who constantly asks, why? The algorithms that govern social media and the internet are not designed to enlighten or educate. They are designed for one thing and one thing only, to maximize engagement. And what engages the human brain most effectively? Not depth, nuance, or reason. It is raw, powerful emotion, outrage, tribal validation, humor, and controversy. Who challenges the teacher's authority, or who finds the curriculum's premises flawed, is often labeled a disruptor or a troublemaker. The system is not built to handle true intellectual dissent. It is a machine designed to produce compliant citizens and workers who will fit neatly into pre-existing structures. It trains us to believe that the path to success lies in providing the right answers, not in asking the right questions. And this conditioning doesn't just happen by chance. It is actively cultivated by the very institutions that shape our minds. The corporate world is not a meritocracy of ideas. It is a hierarchy of power designed to maintain stability and maximize profit. It is rarely the most innovative or intelligent employee who gets promoted. More often, it is the person who best fits the culture, who navigates the office politics with skill, and who reliably executes the vision of their superiors without causing friction. Genuine innovation is, by its very nature, disruptive. It threatens established workflows, challenges the authority of senior management, and introduces risk. But as a threat, someone who is not a team player. The deep thinker who points out a fundamental flaw in a company's long-term strategy is often seen not as an asset. Society claims to celebrate innovators like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, but it conveniently forgets that within their own organizations, they were often seen as tyrannical, difficult, and impossible to work with. The system celebrates the results of innovation, but it punishes the process of disruptive thinking. The more aware you are, the harder it is to find simple, uncomplicated happiness. For Schopenhauer, wisdom and happiness were not partners. They were antagonists. Ignorance, not knowledge, was the true key to a contented life. This philosophy explains why so many of history's great minds, from Nietzsche to Pascal to Kafka, were plagued by depression, existential dread, and profound social isolation. They were cursed with a clarity that the world was not ready for. The deep thinker, having analyzed these pursuits from a distance, often questions their intrinsic value. This can make them appear aloof, indifferent, or cynical to others who have built their entire identities around chasing these very things. They are not playing the same game as everyone else, and in the eyes of the players, that makes them a very strange person indeed. The deep thinker, who values truth and authenticity above social grace, often struggles to participate in this theater. They find it exhausting, boring, or even morally compromising. Their desire for depth is a constant frustration in a world that overwhelmingly favors the superficial. They are compelled to pull back the curtain, to see the gears of the machine, even if the sight is horrifying. This creates a fundamental and often painful disconnect between the deep thinker and the rest of society. Where the average person seeks pleasure, the deep thinker seeks meaning. Where the average person avoids discomfort, the deep thinker embraces the uncomfortable questions because they sense that is where the truth lies. Where most people find solace in relationships, entertainment, and routine, the deep thinker often sees these as elegant distractions from the deeper, more unsettling questions of existence. It has been codified, amplified, and exploited by the very structures of our society, creating a grand architecture of comfort that systematically sidelines the intellectual and celebrates the superficial. To understand how deep this programming runs, we must look beyond biology and into the systems that shape our world. This condition was diagnosed with chilling accuracy over a century ago by the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. While other thinkers celebrated intelligence as the key to a better life, Schopenhauer saw it as a profound burden. His philosophy was built upon a powerful and unsettling concept he called the will, a blind, irrational, and insatiable force that drives all of existence. For the vast majority of humanity, this manifests as the will to live. This is not just a desire for survival, but a relentless, instinctual chase for pleasure, comfort, social validation, and the avoidance of pain and difficult truths at all costs. Most people, he argued, are puppets of this will, living their lives in a cycle of desire, momentary satisfaction. He outlined several reasons for this unavoidable alienation and renewed desire, without ever truly questioning the nature of the strings that pull them. However, the highly intelligent person operates on a different frequency. Schopenhauer believed this clarity of vision makes it nearly impossible for the intellectual to genuinely connect with others on a conventional level. First, they see through the social charade. Most daily interactions are governed by a set of unwritten rules based on polite dishonesty, status games, and small talk. Schools publicly claim to value intelligence, curiosity, and critical thinking. Second, they recognize the futility of common desires. This is why Schopenhauer famously wrote, "A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial." Schopenhauer's diagnosis is crucial because it shows us that the deep thinker's isolation is not an accident. Consider the modern education system. The dawn of the digital age has added a powerful new accelerant, technology that monetizes shallowness. The deep thinker's struggle is not just with other people. It is with the entire operating system of modern society. This institutional preference for conformity over brilliance follows us directly into the workplace. This pattern is perhaps most visible in our politics. If our social programming and institutional structures weren't enough to sideline the deep thinker, in this new digital ecosystem, complex ideas are a liability. This environment creates perfect digital tribes, known as echo chambers and filter bubbles. So we are left with a sobering picture. Faced with this biological wiring and systemic resistance, is the deep thinker doomed to a fate of lonely, silent observation and bitter despair? Faced with a world that seems biologically and systemically designed to reject them, what is the deep thinker to do? Surrender to despair and retreat into a bitter, silent isolation? To find the way forward, we must look to how they endured. Their stories reveal powerful strategies, not for eliminating loneliness, but for transforming it into a source of strength, clarity, and purpose. If our psychology makes us fear them, and our institutions and technologies are built to sideline them, is the struggle simply futile? Largely ignored and dismissed as a madman during his productive years, he did not relentlessly fight for society's approval. Instead, he weaponized his isolation. He saw the herd and its conventional morality not just as uninteresting, but as a source of intellectual contamination. He retreated into solitude, climbing the mountains of Switzerland, and in that profound quiet, away from the deafening noise of public opinion, he produced some of the most challenging philosophy ever written. The genius Albert Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." You must accept that not every conversation needs to be a deep philosophical dive. Not every flawed argument you hear on the news or from a relative needs to be corrected. Deep thinkers see the world differently, and this will always make some people uncomfortable. But that does not mean you should stop thinking, stop questioning, or stop seeing. Society may fear deep thinkers, but it is deep thinkers who drag humanity forward, kicking and screaming, into a better future. Constantly battling against the tide of superficiality is a recipe for burnout, bitterness, and cynicism. You are not broken. You are not alone. And while society may fear the mirror you hold up, your perspective is not a curse. Let's start a conversation. Have you ever faced rejection for thinking deeply? And if you want to explore more insights from history's greatest minds, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. It is a rare and vital gift. It is the engine of progress, the conscience of humanity, and the light that illuminates the path ahead. A crucial survival skill is learning to distinguish between the crucial battles of principle and the pointless skirmishes of ego. Learn when to engage, when to challenge, and when to simply observe, nod, and walk away. This isn't a sign of defeat. It's a sign of wisdom. It allows you to conserve your precious mental and emotional energy for the moments, projects, and people that truly matter. This is the ultimate challenge and skill for the deep thinker who wishes to have an impact. Redefine success on your own terms. If your measure of success is widespread fame, immediate acceptance, and constant validation from society, you are setting yourself up for a life of frustration. You must detach your self-worth from external approval. Perhaps your purpose is simply the joy of the pursuit of truth itself. Perhaps it is the act of creation, writing the book, composing the music, developing the theory regardless of its reception. Perhaps your impact is to influence one other person's thinking in a profound way. Or perhaps it is to plant a single idea like a redwood tree, knowing that it may only reach its full height long after you are gone. The goal is not to dumb down your ideas, but to develop the craft of building a bridge from your mind to others. Learn to use powerful analogies, simple metaphors, and compelling stories to make your complex ideas accessible and resonant. Think of it as intellectual empathy, the ability to step outside your own complex understanding and see the world from the perspective of someone who hasn't yet made the same connections. This is not a compromise of your depth. It is a demonstration of your mastery over it. It is the difference between having a great idea and having an idea that changes things. His life proves Schopenhauer's advice that solitude should not be viewed as a punishment, but as a powerful tool, a crucible for forging original thought, free from the comfortable illusions and recycled ideas of the masses. He teaches us that some thoughts can only grow in the wilderness of isolation. The answer, etched into the pages of history and philosophy, is a defiant no. If you feel like an outsider for your thoughts, you are not doomed. The solution to loneliness is not to make your thoughts shallower so that more people will accept them. It is to seek out the few who can meet you at your depth. You do not need the validation of millions. You need the understanding and challenging discourse of a handful of kindred spirits. This is not about elitism. It is about efficiency of the soul. In the digital age, your tribe may not be next door. Save your most profound thoughts for those who have earned the right to hear them, for an audience that is receptive and capable of engagement. But they are out there in niche online communities, intellectual forums, book clubs, and specialized groups dedicated to every conceivable topic. The Internet, for all its amplification of shallowness, has also made it easier than ever for the intellectually isolated to find one another. Seek them out. Don't cast your pearls before swine. You simply need to learn to navigate the world with conscious intent and strategy. The stories of the world's most influential minds are not merely tales of persecution. They are masterclasses in resilience. They are not tragedies to be mourned, but blueprints for navigating a resistant world, offering us a path from alienation to impact. These historical outcasts were not just victims. They were pioneers who learned to navigate a hostile world, and in doing so, they offer us a roadmap. Consider Socrates again. He was not merely a victim of a fearful society. He was a man who made a conscious and strategic choice. Given the opportunity to escape his death sentence, he refused. He understood that fleeing would invalidate his entire life's work of standing for truth and principle. By calmly accepting the poison, he turned his execution into his most powerful and enduring philosophical statement, that an unexamined life is not worth living, and that some principles are worth dying for. Humiliated by the most powerful institution on earth, his lesson is one of unwavering integrity. Sometimes, the greatest impact comes not from being accepted by the system, but from demonstrating a willingness to defy it for the sake of what you know to be true. His legacy was not secured by pleasing the crowd in his time, but by providing a timeless example of intellectual courage for all time. Or look to Galileo Galilei. And forced to publicly deny his own discoveries, he never lost faith in the truth. The famous, perhaps legendary, words he muttered after his recantation, "Epper si muove," capture the quiet, stubborn, and unshakable inner conviction of the deep thinker. His story teaches us the profound lesson of patience. The truth does not require society's permission to be true. A deep thinker's duty is often to discover and articulate reality, not necessarily to force its acceptance upon a resistant world. The seeds of truth, once planted, have a way of growing, even if the planter does not live to see the forest. Galileo's victory was not won in the courtroom of the Inquisition. It was won in the unstoppable march of time, which ultimately proves all truths. The path of Friedrich Nietzsche shows us another way. These historical blueprints offer us timeless strategies, which we can adapt for our own modern lives. First, curate your circle. Second, ***, master the art of translation. Finally, ***, reframe your purpose and choose your battles. More importantly, you must redefine your sense of success. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer also said, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." So if you have ever felt like an outsider for your thoughts, remember this. You are in the company of the greatest minds in history. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments.